she never meant to interrupt anyone that night. In fact, the last thing Marissa wanted was to draw attention to herself. But life has a way of pushing broken people toward unexpected moments of healing, and sometimes the smallest step, one hesitant approach, one quiet apology, becomes the beginning of something unforgettable. On a cold evening in downtown Seattle, inside a warm little café filled with the soft hum of conversations, her trembling voice and his unexpected answer collided like fate tapping two hearts awake. If you believe kindness and second chances can still change a person's life, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Marissa had been having one of the hardest weeks of her life. She had moved to Seattle only 3 months earlier for a new job that had drained her more than it had excited her. Long hours, harsh deadlines, an overbearing supervisor, and the quiet, echoing loneliness of a new city had slowly worn her down. Tonight, she had forced herself to step out of her apartment because she felt suffocated by her own thoughts. The cafe she found herself in was small but warm, with gentle yellow lighting and the faint sound of jazz playing in the background. She sat alone at a corner table, staring at her untouched cup of chamomile tea. Her eyes stung from the silent tears she kept pushing back. She didn't want anyone to notice, but when you're holding too much inside, even strangers can sense the heaviness around you. Across the room, Ethan, a marketing consultant who had been traveling for work, sat alone at his table. He had planned to spend the evening catching up on emails, but he couldn't focus. The world felt heavy to him too. His long-term relationship had recently ended, leaving behind a hollow ache that no amount of distraction could fill. He wasn't looking for company, but he wasn't entirely avoiding it either. When he noticed Marissa sitting alone, her sadness quietly visible despite her best efforts, something in him shifted, not out of romance, but empathy. He recognized the look of someone who was trying to keep themselves from falling apart. Marissa finally stood up because she needed a napkin. Her hands were shaking slightly as she walked toward the counter, and on her way back, she accidentally brushed against Ethan's table. He looked up, surprised but not annoyed. Marissa froze, her heart thudding. "I'm so sorry for disturbing you," she whispered, embarrassed. Ethan smiled, a gentle, tired, genuine smile. "You didn't disturb me," he said softly. "Actually, you made my night." She blinked in confusion, not understanding how her awkward moment could possibly make anyone's night better. But he meant it. Something about the vulnerability in her eyes had reminded him that he wasn't the only one feeling lost lately. Her presence had broken the bubble of isolation he'd been sitting in. Just knowing someone else was human enough to struggle, to apologize, to tremble, it humbled him. Marissa, unsure of what to do, stood there holding the napkin like a shield. Ethan gestured toward the empty chair across from him, silently inviting her to sit if she wanted to. She hesitated, but her heart nudged her toward it. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she listened. She sat. They didn't speak for a moment. It was quiet, calm, strangely comforting. Marissa felt her chest loosen just a little, as if simply being near someone who wasn't judging her gave her permission to breathe again. Ethan finally spoke, his voice gentle. He told her she looked like she had the weight of the world sitting on her shoulders. Marissa gave a weak, honest laugh and admitted she had been feeling overwhelmed by everything lately, work, loneliness, the pressure of pretending she was fine. She didn't go into deep detail, but the small pieces she shared felt like heavy stones lifted from her heart. Ethan nodded, relating more than she knew. He told her that he, too, had been carrying things he didn't talk about. In a city full of people, he had never felt more alone. His breakup had left him doubting himself, questioning his worth, and wondering if he would ever feel genuinely connected to anyone again. They were two strangers who didn't owe each other anything, yet in that moment, they offered each other exactly what they needed: presence, kindness, and honesty without expectations. The café grew quieter as the night deepened, and their conversation slowly painted warmth into the cold spaces inside both of them. Marissa found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in weeks. Ethan felt a sense of calm that had been missing from his life for far too long. He told her that her apology had touched him more than she realized. Sometimes, he said, a simple moment reminds us we're not invisible. You reminded me that tonight. Marissa swallowed a lump in her throat. No one had said anything so sincere to her in a long time. Their stories continued to flow, work struggles, heartbreak, dreams they were afraid to chase, fears they'd been hiding. They didn't need to pretend or impress. Everything felt real, human, grounding. And as the night wore on, they both realized something incredible. Sometimes, God brings two people together not to change their lives completely, but to help them stand when they've forgotten how. When Marissa finally stood to leave, she felt lighter than when she'd arrived. She thanked Ethan for listening, for being kind, for reminding her that she wasn't alone in the world. Ethan thanked her for sitting down, for sharing, for unintentionally turning his lonely evening into something meaningful. Her "sorry for disturbing" had become the very moment that lifted them both. Before she walked out of the café, Ethan said softly, "I hope your tomorrow feels easier. You deserve that." Marissa smiled, eyes glistening. "And I hope yours brings something good too." They didn't exchange numbers. They didn't need to. The impact had already been made. Sometimes strangers cross our paths simply to remind us that kindness still exists, that connection is still possible, that hope can return in the simplest of ways. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps me bring more emotional stories to you. Special request. Comment below, has a stranger ever changed your day without even realizing it? Marissa walked into the night with a renewed sense of hope, and Ethan stayed behind with a quiet smile, both changed by a moment that began with an apology, and ended with the words, "You made my night."